What's going on, everybody? David here, back with another video. So we're going to do a stimulus package update today. So we have a deadline now. So Nancy Pelosi has indicated 48 hours. If we can get something done in 48 hours, then we'll be able to see a package signed before the election. If we can't get it done in 48 hours, it's going to have to be after the election. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the video. I think they're going to have to move this deadline up just a little bit because at this point, it's just not fair as far as the 48 hours. It just doesn't make sense. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I do have a video. I want to show you a clip. George Stephanopoulos did an interview with Nancy Pelosi, and so we'll look at that. We'll talk as we watch it, and then at the end, I'll give you my opinion. And then, of course, I want to know what your opinion is, so let me know in the comment section down below. But before we do, please hit that like button. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification. That way you get notified anytime we put out a video. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to the clip, and let's go ahead and do that.
A lot of Americans are hurting, as you know, as well, Madam Speaker. I know you've been negotiating with the White House over a possible economic relief package, and you spoke with Secretary Mnuchin last night. Yes. Any closer to reaching a deal?
Well, we're seeking clarity because actually, with all due respect to some of the people in the president's administration, they're not legislators. So when they said we're accepting the language on testing, for example, and we're just making a light touch. They said they changed shall to may, requirements to recommendations, a plan to a strategy, not a strategic plan.
Okay, now this is really important because what she's saying here, and she started off by saying they're not legislators. So she knows the language. As a legislator, you know the language. So when you're drafting a bill, you know if you put may do something, then that gives people an out. Because and I use this in my daily life. If someone says, you know what, I may come over, they're probably not going to come over. They're looking for reasons not to come over. People don't talk like I shall come over, but if someone were to tell me I shall come over, they're probably coming over. They shall do it. But if you say may usually means that, hey, you know what, I might come over, but I might not. So it's very interesting, that whole language thing. Although it might seem, oh, this is not a big deal, it is a big deal when it comes to drafting legislation, because when they start looking at things, they say, oh, well, we just said we may do this, so that doesn't mean we're going to do it. It means we may do it. So that's what she's talking about when it comes to language. I think it's very, very important that be put out there. And this goes both ways. So it could be a situation where there's something that Nancy Pelosi puts on the table and she says, and it might be something that she really is not interested in going forward with. So she'll put, we may do this, and then that way they can back out of it. So very interesting. All right, let's go ahead and continue.
They took out 55% of the language that we had there for testing and tracing. And the tracing part is so important because communities of color have been disproportionately affected by this. So on this subject where we have agreement, we don't have agreement in the language yet, but I'm hopeful. And here's the big difference. Communities of color have more deaths than the white population. Let's just think of this. If you were a child, a Hispanic child has 8 times more chance of going to the hospital with COVID than a white child. A black child, 5 times more chance of going to the hospital than that. That's because we have not addressed the problem, the testing, the tracing, the treatment, the mask wearing, the separation, the sanitation, and all that goes with it. So again, hopefully that we can learn from each other and they understand. Let me just say this. We had pages and pages of how you would do this in the minority community. They crossed it all out. Instead, they put this sentence. Contact tracing will be paid for by the federal government as part of the $75 billion. Okay, we agree with that. But given state difference, each state shall establish a strategy that is appropriate to its circumstances. CDC can provide guidance to the states on elements. Can, no, must. But in addition to that, we have to have a national plan. You cannot leave it up to the states.
So if you don't,
how they're going to address the minority community.
If you don't get that agreement, in the 48-hour deadline, you said, what happens?
Well, here's the thing. The 48 only relates to if we want to get it done before the election, which we do.
Well, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so which we do. But we're saying to them, we have to freeze the design on some of these things. Are we going with it or not? And what is the language? I'm optimistic because, again, we've been back and forth on all of this. You know legislation. Shall is different from may. And the difference amounts to this. If you think of it this simple way, when you say may, you're giving the president a slush fund. He may do this, he may grant, he may withhold. When you say shall, according to the the science tell us must happen. And if we test and trace and treat, mask, separate, ventilate, sanitize, and all the rest of that, we can open our schools.
But
we
Madam
can
Speaker,
open our businesses.
Even if you reach a deal with the White House somewhere around $1.82 trillion, Leader McConnell has said he's not going to put something like that on the floor of the Senate. So what happens?
Well, he said a number of things. And one of the things that he said, I think it was yesterday, but it was reported yesterday, that is if the White House and the House come to an agreement that he would put it on the floor. That is among his many statements. But most of the time he spends laughing, pushing the pause button, telling states to go bankrupt, laughing when in his debate, did you see that? When Amy McGrath was saying to him, what are you doing about stopping the spread of the virus, et cetera? He laughed. He laughed. This is not funny. The president didn't take it seriously. McConnell has not taken it seriously. But we can stop this if we follow the science and be ready for a vaccine, which I hope will be soon.
You haven't spoken to the president in over a year. Are you willing to pick up the phone to close a deal, to get this done?
Look.
All right. Now, this is a big question, right? And I've talked about this plenty of time. They do not want to talk. Nancy Pelosi does not want to talk to President Trump. President Trump doesn't want to talk to Nancy Pelosi. And like I said, this is one of the biggest problems that I have with this whole negotiation. And that is we have politicians that can't talk to each other. And if you can't talk to each other to get deals done and you're two of the most powerful people in the country, then are two of the most powerful, or they are the two most powerful people in the country, I should say. If you cannot sit down and have a discussion or have a discussion over the phone, then you don't need to be in those jobs. Okay. And I'm talking about both Nancy Pelosi and the president. You don't need to be in those jobs if you cannot sit down and have a conversation with them. Now, we'll listen to what Nancy Pelosi says and how she tries to kind of, make a reason why this is not the way that it's usually done. However, we are in a crisis right now, and we need the legislators. So we need Mitch McConnell, we need Nancy Pelosi, we need Chuck Schumer, we need Kevin McCarthy, we need the president at times. They all need to get together. And if they're not willing to do that, then they are telling the American people that they don't care about representing you, because that's their job, to represent your, to be a representative, to represent on your behalf. And if they're not doing that, they do not deserve to have those positions. All right, let's go ahead and continue.
Oh, let me just say this, because I keep getting that question. It isn't about the president. He sends his representative. President Bush sent his representative. President Obama sent their representative. Professionals who know something about the policy. This is not unusual. However, I have a great deal of respect for the office I hold, Speaker of the House, and I have a great deal of respect for the position that he holds, President of the United States. This is not a casual conversation. This is about a meeting of the head of the first branch of government, the legislative branch, and the president. If there is a purpose, if there is a stipulation of trying to get something done, then perhaps we take this to that place when we can't solve other problems. But many of you have spent many times calculating how many times the president has misrepresented the facts, how many times the president has told me and told Chuck Schumer that, yes, we're going to do this for Dreamers, or told bipartisan, bicameral representatives in the Congress, yes, we're going to do this on immigration, told us, yes, we're going to do this on infrastructure, but then he doesn't. So again, you want to meet with them, you meet with them. But as far as I'm concerned, the Speaker of the House must be respected in terms of what the purpose of the meeting is, what the preparation is for it, and what the likely outcome of success would be.
Bottom line, Madam Speaker, are Americans going to get relief before Election Day?
Well, that depends on the administration. The fact is that the heart of the matter is to stop the spread of the virus.
All right, so that's all I'm going to show. There's some other stuff that she talked about, the tax credit. That's something else that she mentioned, but I don't want to make this video too long. And when it comes down to it, and you heard her, you heard Nancy Pelosi, and she said, okay, listen, if the White House can come through, then we'll get something done. And then the White House has said, if Nancy Pelosi can come through, then we'll get something done. So they're just pushing it off on each other, which leads me to believe that nothing is going to get done anytime soon because of that. So, I mean, it's pretty frustrating to hear this. I'm hoping with this 48-hour deadline that we will at least see a push to get something done before the election. Now, to be fair, Steven Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary, the one that she's negotiating with, he's out of the country. He's in the Middle East. So he won't come back until Tuesday. And so it's kind of unfair to give a 48-hour deadline because the 48-hour deadline started yesterday in a tweet by the Deputy Chief of Staff for Nancy Pelosi. And so technically it will end on Monday. So maybe they will push it off until Tuesday. Maybe it's 48-hour work week days, business days, I guess you can say. We'll have to see where they go with that. But when it comes down to it, I mean, it's just one of those things. They're just going back and forth, back and forth. How do you avoid going back and forth like that and blaming the other side? You sit down with the other side and you televise. That would be, it would be great if we could see it. If we could see the negotiation as it happens. You sit down, you have your people, they sit down, they have their people, you talk it out, and we get something done. But like I said, when it comes to representation, we need to have the people who we voted for there at the table. Bottom line, they need to represent. You can have surrogates there to help out. The Treasury Secretary, he's been working with Nancy Pelosi this whole time. He knows kind of what she wants, what she doesn't want. You can have them in the room, but you need to have the legislators there too, because that's why we're talking about this whole language thing. Because if you're not a legislator, you don't really think about language as, oh, who cares about if it says shall or says may? What's the difference? Well, there's a huge difference. And so that's something that really needs to be focused on, as far as we need to have these legislators sitting down. We need to have Mitch McConnell actually sitting down and trying to figure this out. And we need to know that Mitch McConnell is talking to the Republican leadership in the Senate and saying, hey, get ready. This is what's coming. Talk to everybody else. Let everybody else know so we can get this on the floor and get a vote on it. Even though you're still going to have some Republican senators that aren't going to vote for it, at least you might be able to pull over a few just by letting them know what's coming down. So another thing that Nancy Pelosi talked about that I think was really good is the national plan. And we don't have a national plan right now. And this is what she's trying to get language where we have a national plan where the CDC will dictate how states do what they need to do, right? So if we don't do that, if the CDC can, like she mentioned, the CDC can advise the states, well, they can, but that doesn't mean they have to. But if you say that they must advise the states, well, now the CDC has control over what's happening when it comes to testing and tracing and all that. So we're in a situation right now where we don't have a national plan. So each state is doing their own thing. And you might think, well, that's fine. Let the states do their own thing. But if one state is doing a really good job and another state right next to it is not doing a good job, well, that state that's not doing a good job as far as testing and tracing, it's going to affect the state that's doing a good job. And then it's one of those situations where, because you're going to have people going back from state to state, right? Crossing the line. And so when that happens, if there's a high number of people with COVID-19 in one state that's not doing a good job, As soon as those people go over to the state that's doing a good job, COVID-19 gets passed on to the state that's doing really well, and then they have to shut down again. So that's the whole thing. We need a national strategy. And I will, when it comes down to this whole negotiation, there's things that I don't agree about with what Nancy Pelosi's doing. But one of the things that I do agree is we need to have a national plan, because we can't just have each state doing their own thing, because we've seen some states do well, some states don't. And we need to have everyone on the same page when it comes to this. All right. So I want to know what you guys think. So in the comment section below, let me know what you think about the interview. Let me know what you think about the national plan. Let me know what you think about the wording, the language. Does that matter? Let me know down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. Hit that little bell notification. That way you get notified. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.